What's up, galactic friends, and welcome back to another tutorial here on galaxies.dev. Today we are building a lock screen with React Native, and on that lock screen we're gonna have a pretty nice passcode implementation, including animations with reanimated and also FaceID using Expo local authentication. And on top of that, we will build a very cool context that will automatically open up this lock screen after a specific time when our app has been idle or in the background or inactive, and on top of that, even a little additional privacy addition. So I would say let's dive straight into this. We can create a new application, and I kind of like to use create Expo stack for these kind of tutorials because this will give me a working example pretty fast. So npx create Expo stack, you can definitely check this out by Dan Stepanov, create Expo stack. I'm actually also a sponsor here, so a little bit of disclaimer. This is a pretty cool CLI to generate new projects. I will follow this up with a name, and I will use the Expo router. However, it doesn't really matter if you're using the Expo router for this example or something else. You could also do the same behavior with React navigation. You just have to tweak a few things here and there, but overall the logic is the same. So what we want to do is that when our app goes to the background, we want to check when the user comes back if a certain time has passed, and if that's the case, we want to present our lock screen. On top of that, we also want to hide everything that's inside of the application. So this is going to be another small challenge that we have to face. So you know this, if you're using like a banking application or any kind of privacy application and it goes to background, you usually see a white overlay in that application. And we're going to mimic that as well. Before we do that, let's install a few dependencies. So we got Expo local authentication. I also would like to use mmkv because this just makes it easier to access our files. Actually, shouldn't we also bring in something else? Like, well, it would work. On top of that, we also use React Native reanimated and Expo haptics for that bit of like additional magic. Okay, I was just curious if mmkv is enough or if we also use async storage, but mmkv is the replacement for async storage. So okay, because we're using mmkv, we also need to do a prebuild. So if you check out React Native mmkv, you're gonna see that it's a lot faster in most benchmark, but requires us to do a prebuild. But I anyway recommend this today to anyone. It just gives you more freedom. So let's do this, npx expo prebuild. I will just press enter to use these values. And actually we could have done one thing ahead, but you can also do this later. And that is going to our app.json and setting up an entry, basically config plugin entry for the Expo local authentication. Where is it? Under plugins. So what you can plug in here is this blob for Expo local authentication and then give it the FaceID permission. So this is what pops up when the user tries to use FaceID in your application or any sort of biometric authentication then. Okay, this is done, prebuild is done. So let's see, how can we run the prebuild? Simply do npx expo run, npx expo run and then iOS or Android, whatever you prefer. I will do iOS. So that brings it to my simulator. And once we got that, we are pretty much in the same spot, but like if we would just use the Expo Go app, but we do have that pre-build with mmkv. Okay, if you check out, if you use the same template, you can remove these. They're just distraction for us right now. But we want to do one new file and folder. So the folder will be modals, and then I want to have a white.tsx. Okay, I was too fast for the completion here. So this is going to be like a white privacy overlay. We can actually like code this right now because this is just flex1 background color set to white. There's nothing else about this page, okay? This is the whole page. This is just meant to be an overlay above our app. But we don't want to have a lock.tsx. That's certainly going to be a bit more complicated. But before we get into that, let's also define our user inactivity context. So, you know, you can wrap a context around your application. I'm just going to put it under user inactivity inactivity.tsx. Okay, and we're gonna start by actually accessing mmkv or preparing the storage here. Should we do this? Yeah, let's do this like this. So then we got it. So new mmkv. Oh, please just import the right thing, mmkv. You can give it a name if you want to, like you can call it user inactivity storage or something. And I will also like to define my log time to be 3 seconds, okay? So I will use 3000 because this is going to be milliseconds. And then we're gonna have our export const user inactivity. Inactivity, let's call it inactivity provider, because we're going to wrap this around our application. We'll also have the children that it wraps, so we're going to have to return that in the end. We can also use any right now, we're not really interested in that. And then we can close this. Do we actually need this? No, I don't think so. So right now, if we don't want to implement anything, just return the children. And then we can wrap our user inactivity provider around our app. So this is important. We're going to have to do this in the root layout file. So it's definitely called, okay? Make sure you got that. In my template here, there's a stack definition. So I can now wrap it. Actually, we can leave the stack like it is. We can wrap it now around my stack. Okay, user goes here and then just add the import. Okay, so this is not changing anything so far. This is just wrapping our provider around the stack. And what I want to do here is I would also like to define the stack for the two modals. So instead of just defining the stack without anything, I will do stack.screen. Name is yeah, just like this, but not like this. Oh my god. It's getting worse and worse, the code completion. It's under modals /white, and for the options, I just want to have header shown false, and I want to set the animation to, I think I will just set it to none. And we're going to define the same thing for our lock screen as well. Okie dokie, here we go. So the interesting part begins now. We've wrapped the provider around our application. We have the two screens. We can actually close the white one because this is just white. Now the fun begins in that inactivity provider. So first of all, we're going to grab a reference to the app state by using useRef. And then we're going to pass in app state. So this is the package we're going to use across this file to access the current state. We will also use the Expo router for some routing action. So let's use the use router hook. Okay, use router from Expo router. And now we can get started. So what we want to do is whenever our app state changes, we want to store the time. So we want to write the current time. When we then come back to the app, so the app state changes again, we're going to compare the current date to the previously stored date. And if the difference is greater than our log time, so greater than this, then we're going to transition to the lock screen. And additionally, whenever we go to the background, we want to present that white screen. Because if I do something like this, okay, let's close. Oh, no. If I put it on iOS into the switcher or an Android same, we can still see the preview, but you can prevent that if you don't want that preview to be open. So these are the two things that we want to implement. So we're going to have something like const handle app state change. And then we're going to make sure that this is actually called. So we're going to set up one use effect block here. That's called once in the beginning. In it, we're going to create a subscription. So subscription equals. And then we can say app state add event listener change. And whenever the app state changes, we want to call handle app state change. And we can even test this right now. So I'm going to put a log in here with app state, current and next. And then we should see that if I open the app, app state, background, active. Okay, the first log is the current state and then the next app state. If I do this, next app state is inactive. And if I do this, next app state is background. So we got like 3 different states we have to talk about: active, inactive, and background. And as I said, we can do the first thing right here in the beginning. So if the next app state is equal to inactive, in that case, I want to push my page. So I want to push not the lock screen, but the white screen, okay? Modals white. That page definitely exists. I don't know what this is complaining about. In the other case, I want to check if the router can go back. And if that's the case, I want to go back. I don't want to call router pop. I want to call router back. Okay. So let's see. I run the application, and if I now do this, you see no more screen. And you could also nicely have like a blur view on top of your application, no problem. Important thing is, if we come back, it goes back. So first achievement of the day is already made. We got our privacy screen enabled and nobody can see what's going on in our application. By the way, if you want to clean up after yourself, as always, return block with subscription remove goes up here. Now, the next important piece is how we actually present the, and by the way, we should also, of course, set our current state to the next state. We should now check if, actually, yeah, it's fine. Actually, we're fine. So what we need to do is we need to record the start time when we go into background, and we can just set called storage.set. So this is calling on MMKV and date now. And because this is a synchronous operation, we don't need async. Isn't MMKV great? I love it. Oh, my coffee is still warm. This feels so good. Ah, that feels so good. I didn't expect that. Okay. So what do we need to do? If the current app state is, no, let's start differently. If the next app state is equal to background, so we're really going into the background. I don't want to start this on inactive. I feel like I encounter some problems in just going to inactive. When the user closes the app, it goes to background, then we can confidently start our timer. Now, else if the next app state is equal to active, and I also want to check and make sure that the current app state, so the one we stored, app state.current. You can like do a match here. So if that one matches background, then we have to do our little comparison. That comparison shouldn't be too hard. So we can just say const elapsed equals date now minus storage get number start time. Yes, that's correct. Object is possibly null. We can make sure that that is not the case. So it's either start time or 0. Okay. And now if our elapsed time is greater than the lock time, we're gonna push our lock screen. I still don't know why you don't like my lock screen Expo router. Maybe because I'm not using it somewhere, or I created it too late. I don't know, but my model definitely exists. Or should I do like slash? Yeah, okay, this is the type route. Okay, this is the fix for this. It would have worked before anyway, but so you see, we're checking, and if I now go to the background, 1, 2, and come back, nothing happens. That's to be expected because our lock time is 3 seconds. If I go to the background and do something like 1, 2, 3, and we can't really see it, but this is the beginning of our lock screen page. So now we have our inactivity provider set up. We have the privacy screen which comes up. So if I do this, the privacy screen comes up, and if I'm too long gone, the user inactivity strikes and brings me to the lock screen. So the last task for this tutorial is to implement a decent lock screen, which in fact isn't the easiest task. So I've used this before in the FinTech clone with Clerk. You should definitely check out that video if you're interested in even more about this. What we want to do is basically a little bit of text up here. Then I want to have like inputs here for like a passcode. Then I want to have the numbers spread out across this page, something like this. and then show a button for Face ID in case you got that, and of course a button to delete these, and how can I also complete this? Am I not good at drawing today? Oh, this might be covered by my head. Such a pity. Anyway, this is what we want to set up on this screen, and we're going to use reanimated for some small animations. So let's get started. First of all, we need a code. We need code, and we're going to save this in our state. And I will also check the code length. So const code length. This will make it a bit easier to create these bubbles. I will just use the array function and create 6 empty ones, and then I will use my router just like we did before to later do some sort of navigation. Okay, now we can add a little use effect block, and we're gonna do this whenever the code changes. And whenever the code changes, we're gonna check if the code.length is equal to 6. Then I want to do like a little comparison. I'm gonna probably have to do this later. Exactly, something like this. Okay, for our view, I'm gonna wrap this now in a safe area view. Okay, you could have done that automatically. Thank you for nothing. Okay, now let's start. We also need some styling, so let's add our style sheet down here. In fact, let me bring in the styles because we're really not here to write a style sheet and do these things. I took these from the clone. If you're a pro member of Galaxies, you can, by the way, simply click the link below this video, which will take you to that page, and there's also the according repository linked. So these are my styles, just a little fun for the greeting. The code view will have a flex direction row, so we can have like, this is the code view with 6 bubbles up here. Then we need styling for if something is empty, and the numbers view is the big numbers. Okay, nothing really fancy in here. Let's do this. So let's start by this little text view, which I just did to like have something cool on the screen, which says welcome back. And then we're gonna do our view. We're gonna add some styling. I know this is going to be multiple styles, so I will use it with the array syntax. You can trust me on that. We're gonna do some animation later. For now, the only thing I wanna do is I wanna map my code length array, and I need to be careful to put enough brackets in here. I think like this should be fine. So we're gonna have a view, we're gonna set the key simply to index, and the style is, let's say, code empty for now. As a result, we don't see anything. Good question. Where are my styles? Because this is the code view, code length map. This should be like 6 views. Where are my 6 views? No, I almost go back. Okay, yeah, I know what. The problem is that my code empty doesn't define the background color. So we're gonna have to manually check if, let's set the background color. No, the background color. And we check if the item at the element, if the item at the index does exist. If that's the case, I will mark this as black. Otherwise, let's use different colors. Let's use my colors that I had previously. So this is a nice blue, and this should be a nice gray. Okay, so we got that code view up here, and now we need to define our numbers view. Let's do this below. I will close it already. And for every numbers view, we're gonna do a view with a style. We can do this inline quickly. Flex direction row, justify content. Actually, I don't think I want to center the content. This looks pretty good, Copilot. You're good at figuring this out. But let's see. I think I don't have enough closing brackets in here. View. We had this view text. Let's see what it draws. Nothing good. Yeah, thanks. Where did I leave? Oh no, I added some text somewhere. No, where did I leave text? I can't see it. Where is it? Okay, yeah. Okay, we see we get 3 numbers, 1, 2, 3. They use the style number, and on press they call set code. Yeah, well, that's most likely correct, but I would like to trigger a little haptic. So let's add 2 functions for numbers press and numbers back. They basically do the same, but if you want to do this in a cool way, I highly recommend you do it like you're entering something on a real board. So you can use the haptics plugin and then trigger a little impact async with a light feedback. This just gives this little tick, tick, tick when you press something. So now we can use this. We're updating the state in the same way like we would do before. This would add the new number, and this would slice the array and remove that number. So now let's change this here, and on press, instead of doing this, I will call my on number press with, what's the value of the iteration? Probably number. Okay, yeah, here we go. Okay, still works. Only thing is that I still need to change this. So justify content is now, of course, space between. So we can space them across the page. Good, that's the first start. We can do this now for the next number. So we can do this for 4, 5, 6. Actually, yeah, we should probably use touchable opacity around this from React Native. Let's put this in here as well. Okay, and yeah, I should do for debugging, just put like instantly show that view all the time. But anyway, should work. So 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, 9. Okay, this is our full input of numbers. If we reach 6, we should do our little check up here, and then we would do our additional logic. However, we also need a button to go back. I think we have the function for number back, but we also need a button for that. And we also need a button for FaceID, of course. So let's add another view in here. Okay. And this one will also look like this. So the first button, I want to call a function on biometric press. So on biometric press, we're going to implement that in a second. So then let's go down and let's put in a little touchable opacity on biometric press. And I also would like to use, oops, what was that? The material icons. So then it gives us, wait, let's put this a bit up so you can see this little head here. Okay. So in between, we of course also need the 0 for our input. So let's add a new touchable opacity, which calls on number press with 0. And then finally, I want to have a back button. This is a bit complicated because that should be shown all the time. Otherwise, our view is kind of jumping around. So we have to use view style and set like a min width of, I don't know, 30. For the next view. So that makes sure that the 0 is actually here, and then in that view we can check if code length is greater than 0. In that case, I want to render another touchable opacity. This one should simply call on number back or something. What was that called? On number, what was the name? Numbers backspace. What is that for a function name? Why did I? Such a trash name. Please don't use, just use a better name. But I wanted to also use a material icon instead here. So let's use this one. Okay, really hope you can see this. My face or head is not covering this. I should now be able to go back with it. Okay, good. I am. And we see it comes and goes just like this. Good. If you want to get fancy, you can also like put a little text below this, like this, forgot your passcode. You probably can't see this, but this is the whole screen. Okay, so we can now put in the number. If we get to 6, we're actually not yet stopping because we don't really have the logic. Let's just put in some sort of dummy logic up here. So you would normally, of course, capture a user passcode up front and then compare it against that passcode. I would recommend to use Expo Secure Store in that case, but nonetheless, Let's do if code join on an empty string is equal to, let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In that case, I want to call router.replace, and I want to go to, in my application, to just slash. In your application, you might go somewhere else. Additionally, I want to set the code back to an empty array. If the code is wrong, we're going to have to do nothing, but I would like to do a little shaky animation here. And we can do this with reanimated. This is going to be interesting. Do we want to use biometric or do the animation stuff first? Let's do the animation stuff first, and then we wrap up with biometric. So for the animation, I will define an offset of 0 using use shared value. So with a shared value, we basically share a value with a native thread where we can perform the animation in a more performant way than if we would do this with JavaScript. In this case, it's probably not too important, but nonetheless, it is usually better. Additionally, we create a style using use animated style. Okay, now my code completion was fine already. And I want to return translate x, of course, with offset.value. Close this. Okay, this is my style, and I will now pass this style to the code view up here. And to use it with the code view, we have to make this an animated animated.view. Make sure you get this from React Native reanimated, and then next to the code view, we can use the styling from my use styles hook. Now, when the code is wrong, I want to trigger a little shake, and that means we have like a sequence here because this is performed a few times. We can do this by setting offset value not to 10, but to something with sequence. So with sequence is another thing we can import from reanimated, and our sequence now looks like this. We first do with timing, moving it. Let's define this. Let's do like fixed values. We do like an offset of 20 and a time to shake it. Then we can use these. So we go to minus offset. Want to shake this to the left. We're gonna do it for duration time, or maybe duration time and a half. Doesn't matter. Then we're gonna call with repeat from React Native reanimated our with timing function. With offset, duration time, we're gonna do this 4 times, and we will also reverse our action. So we're gonna pass true for reverse. And finally, with timing, we will go back to an offset of 0. So this is our little animation. Then we're gonna also do like an error notification. And as a result, let's see. I will do a wrong passcode. And you see, shaky, and it removes the button because we're setting our code back to an empty array. Good. This feels really rewarding, especially if you use this on a device. You get haptics feedback when you press the numbers. You get haptic feedbacks when you encounter an error. And when you get a correct code, you will be brought back to the inside area. By the way, you could also implement the user activity filter in a different kind of way where it runs in the background the whole time and not just when you put the app in the background. So even if the user has the app open, you might want to lock it after like, I don't know, 30 seconds of inactivity. Okay, that's it. So the last thing we need now is to import our local authentication package from Expo local authentication. And when we press our biometric function here, we can do this pretty easily with just one line. So we can grab the success result from await, and I notice I need to make this an async function, await local authentication dot authenticate async. You don't really have to pass anything to it. I don't know. Apple requires apps which use FaceID to provide a description. That's what we did in the beginning in our app.json. But in our case, we can simply check if we had a success here. We're gonna go to the inside area, and else I would say we're gonna do the error notification here again. Okay, so Simon, how can we test this now if we're using a simulator? That is a good question. So if you open the simulator, especially here on iOS, you can go in the top menu to features, and there is FaceID. You can first of all click enrolled, so you're enrolled, and then you got 2 options. You got matching face and non-matching face. You can trigger them with Command Shift M or N. So let's do this. We have to do this when we click this. So first of all, we click this. No, this is the case of FaceID is not enrolled usually. I thought I would be enrolled. Such a pity, because I never recover from that page. I honestly don't know what my code is. Let's see. But this app also did not ask me for FaceID stuff. Well, let's see. Okay, this app wants to use FaceID. I will allow it. And now I can select Command Shift N is a non-matching face. Or face non-matching Apple, or is it Shift? Apple Option N. Okay, face not recognized. Try again. Command, try again or cancel, whatever. Let's do again. Command Shift N, not recognized. Okay, so I can try this now out, and Command Option M is the successful Face ID. And this brings me instantly back here. That means we do have a flaw in the user activity. I think this worked. If next step is background, if we're going back here, where did we go back to this? Did I have a mistake here in my activity? Let's check. If app state current matches, app state current next. I mean, it works for my passcode, so it should also work for anything beyond that. I honestly don't know. Why did we go wrong? Router replace. It's exactly the same. Maybe we had like an error somewhere in there, but I think it should be pretty clear that this should work. If there's some bug here, it's usually along these lines, because like the previous state was something different and you're pushing the stuff in the wrong way. But I'm pretty sure you will be able to figure that out, and you now have a beautiful input screen that you can use to show when the app should be logged. You also, remember, have the privacy filter that you can instantly bring up when the user or the app state goes to inactive. So there are 3 states: active, inactive, and background, and probably also like killed, but that won't really help us a lot. So I do hope that this tutorial helped you. If you want more, check out the other tutorials and courses on Galaxies, and you might want to become a pro to get the best support on Galaxies. And of course, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button on this channel for more React Native videos. And finally, I pinned a video up here, which is the fintech clone I mentioned, where we use this. So in any kind of financial application, this totally makes sense. So check out that clone. It is an epic build, and I'm pretty sure you're gonna love it as well. Enjoy the builds and catch you next time. Until then, happy coding, Simon.